Okay, we're going to start learning about polyatomic ions. And polyatomic ions are a group of atoms that take on a charge. Monatomic ions are a single element that takes on a charge. And the charge is created by gaining or losing electrons. There are some videos on your reference center that will help you really look at this in a little more depth. But right now, at the beginning of the year, we ask you just to start memorize a certain list of polyatomic ions. That list, again, is in your reference center under your ion list sheet, and so you can find it there if you're wondering which ones you're going to memorize. We're going to start memorizing our polyatomic ions with oxygen in them, and so they will always end with oxygen. So our very first one is going to be nitrate. Nitrate is going to be drawn as a formula, just like you would think on the periodic table when you hear the word nitrate, you think nitrogen. So you will always have nitrogen in this polyatomic ion. And the ones we're learning to start with are going to be grouped with oxygen. It's just a certain number. So the next element, a capital O, not lowercase. So nitrogen and oxygen is going to be bonded to 3 oxygens. That's a subscript. The superscript is going to be the number and negative. That's going to tell you it's got 1 extra electron. We have 2 types of ions that you're going to start seeing in class throughout the year. One is called a cation. Let me get that out of the light. Cations are going to lose electrons, and therefore they will be positive. You can see this is not a cation. This is actually what we call an anion. These ions gain electrons, and therefore they take on a negative charge. And they can take on several negatives or lose several negatives. The whole goal here is when you start seeing the Lewis electron dot structure is that every element except hydrogen and helium are trying to get an octet or 8 electrons to be stable. So they bond covalently to do that. So let's take a look at that. Lewis electron dot structures are known as LEDs. For short, Lewis electron dot structures. So what we're doing, this is an expanded version of the formula above. We have nitrogen surrounded by 3 oxygens, just like the formula tells you, but we're going to draw it out. And what we need to do is we need to place 8 electrons around every element. Bonding electrons always happen in pairs with a line. So that line represents 2 electrons. So this oxygen has 2 electrons with that line. It's a covalent bond, and so therefore it needs 2, 4, 6 more, because there's 2, 4, 6, 8. It now has an octet. And you can see I'm going to erase this here. I'm going to make it a little nicer. The pairs of electrons should always be close together and noticeable, kind of like a vampire bite. Here we can make another bond and get 2, 4, 6, 8. Why an octet? Well, it's just kind of a magic number in chemistry. We show that elements are actually stable with 8. So they like to take on 8 electrons. And you can notice here that nitrogen is never going to get 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and double bond an oxygen. I chose the top oxygen. You could choose any oxygen. But watch what happens. In order for this oxygen to get 8, it already has 4, 2, 4. So you just need 6, 8 now. So now everything has an octet. 2, 4, 6, 8. Each dot's 1 electron. The line is 2 electrons. 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. So everything has an octet. But one of these electrons, and I don't care which one we choose because it doesn't really matter because it varies, came from an outside element. So something actually lost out there in the world, electron, and this gained it. So this octet could happen. You don't have to draw a different colored dot, but it's nice to know that that dot came from the outside. So therefore, this actually is an ion. This group took on a charge. And how many electrons did it take? 1. And what charge is an electron? Negative. So this whole thing must have brackets or else it won't be right because the reader won't know that it took on an outside charge. So that's your first ion to learn. That is the ion of the week. You need to learn the actual formula, the name to the formula, and then the Lewis electron dot structure of the leads of it as well.